So good day to everyone joining us today, and welcome to the session titled Building Water Resilience, How Evaluation Evidence is Shaping Africa's Climate Adaptation Frontline. This event is part of the Evidence for Climate Action Pavilion at COP30, and it's organized by Independent Development Evaluation at the African Development Bank. So interpretation is available in English and French. So you can click on the globe icon on your Zoom toolbar and select your preferred language. You can also use the chat if you have comments to share and if you want to ask questions. We recommend that you just post your questions throughout the presentation and the discussion, and we'll try to respond to most of them before we finish. I'd like to now introduce our speakers. Mr. Joseph Mwanda, who is the Chief Evaluation Officer at IDEV, will share key findings from the evaluations of the bank's support to the water sector, highlighting the lessons for climate adaptation. And he'll be followed by Ms. Alba Serna, who is a Senior Water Engineer in the North Africa region, also at the African Development Bank. And Alba will bring in some operational perspectives on the use of evaluative evidence. The full bios of our speakers will be shared in the chat box, so please feel free to read more about their work and experience. So at this point, I would like to invite Mr. Joseph Mwanda to make his presentation. Over to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Christine. Je vais parler en français. Bonjour et bon après-midi. Je suis très ravi de participer à cette importante conversation sur un sujet fondamental, non seulement pour la politique climatique, mais aussi pour la vie elle-même, en l'occurrence l'eau. En Afrique, l'eau est notre première ligne de défense face au changement climatique. Je vais présenter de ce fait une synthèse des constatations issues de deux évaluations majeures portant sur l'eau pour la santé et l'eau pour l'agriculture. La première évaluation, c'est l'évaluation du soutien de la Banque africaine de développement au secteur de l'eau durant la période 2005-2016. La seconde est l'évaluation indépendante de la Facilité africaine de l'eau sur la période 2005-2018. Aujourd'hui, environ 69% des Africains ont accès à l'eau potable. Mais dans les zones rurales, où les effets du changement climatique sont souvent les plus forts, la couverture n'est que de 46%. Et l'accès à l'assainissement est encore plus faible. Il ne s'agit pas seulement d'un déficit de développement, il s'agit d'un déficit de résilience. Car lorsqu'une sécheresse frappe une communauté qui ne dispose pas de système de stockage, les familles doivent marcher plus loin, les rendements agricoles baissent, les filles quittent l'école pour aller chercher de l'eau, les résultats sanitaires se dégradent. Et les chocs climatiques amplifient davantage les inégalités. L'Afrique se réchauffe plus rapidement que la moyenne mondiale. Les sécheresses et les inondations deviennent plus fréquentes et plus sévères. Et lorsque les systèmes d'eau sont défaillants, c'est tout le système qui s'effondre. Santé, agriculture, énergie et moyens de subsistance. Pourtant, 350 millions d'Africains n'ont toujours pas accès à l'eau potable. C'est plus que la population des États-Unis. L'eau n'est pas seulement un secteur, c'est le fil conducteur qui relie tout ce qui permet aux communautés de survivre et aux économies de fonctionner. Le cas emblématique est celui du célèbre jour zéro du Cap en Afrique du Sud, qui a été un avertissement mondial. En termes de leçons, nous allons présenter les leçons tirées de l'évaluation du secteur de l'eau et quelques leçons tirées de l'évaluation de la Facilité africaine de l'eau. Nos évaluations montrent que, premièrement, lorsque les risques climatiques sont intégrés dès la conception, les systèmes durent plus longtemps et protègent davantage de personnes. De ce fait, les projets ayant utilisé des modèles hydrauliques où des solutions fondées sur la nature ont mieux résisté au stress climatique. Deuxièmement, et positivement, même dans les contextes fragiles ou instables, des investissements ciblés en résilience ont permis de maintenir l'accès à l'eau lors des crises, comme les sécheresses, inondations et conflits. Troisièmement, la gouvernance détermine la réussite. En effet, même les systèmes les mieux conçus échoueront sans institutions solides pour les exploiter et les entretenir. Nous avons vu des endroits où des puits avaient été forgés, mais où personne n'avait été formé pour les gérer. Des pompes ont été installées, mais aucun budget n'était prévu pour les réparer. Des systèmes d'approvisionnement en eau ont été construits, mais aucune donnée n'a été collectée pour gérer la demande. Enfin, l'assainissement a pris du retard et il est particulièrement vulnérable face aux impacts climatiques. La principale leçon ici est que les infrastructures seules ne suffisent pas. La résilience climatique ne se résume pas aux tuyaux et aux pompes. Elle concerne les personnes et les institutions. En ce qui concerne la facilité africaine de l'eau, l'une des conclusions les plus encourageantes provient effectivement de cette facilité. La facilité africaine de l'eau a joué un rôle catalytique en mettant l'accent sur la préparation des projets, les réformes institutionnelles et la production des connaissances. Elle a permis de mobiliser des financements supplémentaires significatifs. En termes de constatation, notre évaluation de la facilité africaine de l'eau a montré que, premièrement, des petites subventions catalytiques, parfois quelques centaines de milliers de dollars, ont permis de mobiliser jusqu'à 10 fois plus en financement additionnel. Deuxièmement, ces fonds ont soutenu des solutions locales impulsées par les communautés, telles que des systèmes de collecte des eaux de pluie, la restauration des bassins versants, des petits systèmes d'irrigation et de stockage, et des solutions basées sur la nature. Des approches abordables, adaptatives et reproductibles, bâties du bas vers le haut. Enfin, l'évaluation a mis en évidence certaines limites en termes d'extension, de suivi des impacts et de suivi institutionnel. La leçon à tirer ici est que des petits investissements catalytiques peuvent débloquer des financements pour une adaptation transformationnelle. Oh, sorry. Et pour finir, comment les résultats des évaluations ont été utilisés? La bonne, ces enseignements influencent déjà le changement. La résilience climatique est désormais au cœur des politiques, par exemple, la politique sur l'eau, la stratégie décennale 2024-2033 de la Banque africaine de développement. Deuxièmement, les efforts de coopération transfrontalière sur les ressources en eau se renforcent. Et enfin, les partenaires au développement s'orientent vers des approches intégrées à long terme plutôt que des projets isolés. Mais nous devons accélérer le mouvement car le changement climatique s'accélère. La question est maintenant, avons-nous la volonté de mettre à l'échelle ce qui fonctionne? Merci de votre attention.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for this insightful presentation. My name is Alba Serna. I'm a water and sanitation engineer in the African Development Bank, working in the North Africa region. So
Thank
what we
you so
have
much.
clearly...
Presentation. We will now hand over to Alba, who is going to give us some operational insights, especially with regard to the use of evaluative insights in the water sector. Over to you, Alba.
Thank you so much, Christine. Can you hear me? I'm not sure you can hear me or you can see me.
Go ahead, please.
Hi. Hi, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Joseph, for this insightful presentation. What we have clearly heard is that water sits at the very center of the climate adaptation in Africa. It underpins health, food security, energy systems, urban development, and livelihood, with nearly 3 out of 4 jobs depending directly or indirectly on reliable water resources. The evidence presented shows that while progress has been made, climate change is already reshaping water availability through droughts, flooding, and increasing variability, which make resilience planning essential. We also saw how evaluation evidence has been instrumental in shaping the African Development Bank's waters policy, strategy, and operational choices, helping distinguish between business as usual development and those that truly build climate resilience. Importantly, the presentation highlighted concrete lessons: the value of early climate risk screening, the need to strengthen water utilities and sanitation systems, and the importance of integrated water, food, energy, and ecosystem approaches. Finally, we were reminded that Africa remains highly vulnerable despite contributing least to global emissions, and that adaptation finance related to climate justice is key to build sustainable solutions. These reflections provide a rich foundation for our discussion. So please, the floor is open for Q&A. I think that you can write your questions and we are going to answer it little by little. Otherwise, meanwhile, we have the first question. I can give a specific example of a project that is financed by the African Water Facility and is built on the evidence base of the evaluation done by the bank. And this is, for example, the water strategy for Tunisia in 2050. This is financed by the African Water Facility and the GIZ and the KfW. And this is very innovative. It has been very much appreciated in North Africa region because it considers the different scenarios for climate change and also for development patterns. So there's a lot of, it is based on a very strong computational analysis. And it's also another aspect that is very important here is highly participatory. So for preparing this strategy, there have been consultation for all stakeholders in Tunisia, from the north to the south, and different ages and different representation of stakeholders. So with this water strategy for Tunisia, the objective is to have water sustainability by 2050. So this is a way that the bank has used this African Water Facility to mobilize funds for a climate resilience water strategy for a nation. Thank you. Christine, do we have some questions?
Thank you, Alba. So there's a question from Arunjana Das, and the question goes like, the findings regarding the catalytic nature of nature-based small-scale projects backed by consistent financing, could you please speak to the generalizability of this finding to other contexts as well? I think this question would probably be suited to Joseph. Over to you, Joseph.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christine. The main aspect of the African Water Facility using its catalytic nature or its catalytic effect, or starting with a small good experience, but the challenge usually is how can we scale the good experience made from the African Water Facility. So context matter. Definitely context matter. And I can say that the good experience gained from the small-scale project can be scaled if we understand better the context on which we get this good experience. So I can say the good of evaluation is that we identify not only what works or what doesn't work, but also the why. So the why can help to see whether in a different context, we can use the same finding to scale up a good result. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. As we wait for other questions in the chat, maybe I would ask Alba, in your experience supporting water operations in North Africa, what practical steps or innovations have proven most effective in translating evidence into stronger climate-smart project design and delivery?
Thank you so much, Christine. So, for example, I can give some insight of the work that we are doing in Egypt. We are supporting the government in diversifying and valorizing the use of water and increase the profitability of each drop of water. So we are working with the government. We have worked in different wastewater treatment plant, but for example, it's very interesting to highlight the case of Gabel El Asfar, which is the second biggest wastewater treatment plant in the world. And it has been built under a programmatic approach, so phase by phase. And what is being interesting is how the evaluation and the information that we have received during these years, it has changed the way we have designed and we have supported the government to design the phases of the wastewater treatment plants. So, for example, the last phase that we have financed, it has it contribute the water is recycled, so it's contribute. It's merged with fresh water and the downstream, and it contributes to energy, to agriculture, irrigation, and also to ecosystem development. But also the last phase includes the production of renewable energy by digesters. So I think this is something very important, and this comes from the evidence that we have looked and that we have figured out from the different phases and the different studies that have been done.
Thank you very much. And Joseph, just from your experience over the years, what insights would you have in terms of the partnerships or policy shifts that are needed to ensure long-term resilience and equitable access to water across Africa?
Sorry, in terms of partnership, can you?
Yes, in terms of partnerships or policy shifts, just based on the evidence that you have been able to synthesize over the years, what changes or what shifts are needed to ensure long-term resilience and equitable access of to water across Africa?
Yeah, I think the main issue in terms of let's say a water sector, one of the main issue is the issue of sustainability, because we used to focus on mobilizing funding, but we need to move from just mobilizing funding to having an effective result and result that lasts. Because you can spend a lot of money building infrastructure, but if there is not enough sustainability,
Joseph, I think we lost you. I think Joseph dropped. Alba, maybe the same question to you, just based from your experience in the water sector, what partnerships or policy shifts are needed to ensure long-term resilience and equitable access to water access across Africa?
Thank you so much, Christine. So I think, well, partnership, and this is something that we also do at the African Development Bank, has to be at different levels. We need partnerships, and we need between stakeholders and government, for example. This is something that we do when we assess our project. We engage civil society, even we do this during the implementation of our projects. I think also partnerships has to do between governments. I was mentioning the water, food, energy, and ecosystem nexus. It is very important that we don't take decision in silos anymore, but we do it in partnerships. So also even at the same level of government, but at different ministers, I think this is very important. And also obviously at the regional level, as at least for water, we have a lot of transboundary water resources in Africa. So having these partnerships at regional level and transboundary levels is very important. And by the way, Christine, I think there's a question about transboundary water in the chat box.
Okay, yes. So what kind of adaptations are needed for evaluation to offer timely and relevant evidence for transborder and urgent challenges such as water resilience?
So one second. So I think first here, it's very important to know that Africa has a very big amount of transboundary water resources. Sometimes there are groundwater resources, and sometimes there are surface resources. And also it's important to note that not all of the transboundary water resources have agreements. So I think one of the things that are important here to offer timely and relevant evidence and cooperation for transboundary resource management is to have good agreements for the use of these transboundary water resources. And this also implies the sensitivity to climate change. I think we did an assessment some years ago at the bank, and we realized that I think that only 12 transboundary water resources in Africa have climate-proof agreements, and this is something that is very important. Each transboundary water resource has to be assessed in how it's going to respond, or how it's going to be its sensitivity to climate change, and not only to that, but also how it's going to evolve, for example, the development patterns for the transboundary countries in the years to come. So in base to this, I think it's very important to have climate-proof agreements that can respond to this need, and also that can provide with the elements for evaluation, for example, a rapid risk assessment, or giving the alert timely. But for this, obviously, we need to ensure that the agreements are there, that every nation knows how much resources are allocated to them, and how can they dispose of these resources in the time.
Okay. Thank you so much, and welcome back, Joseph. I think you were cut off when you were responding to the previous question. So maybe you could respond to that question and just add on something with regard to the kind of adaptations that are needed for evaluation to offer timely and relevant evidence for transborder and urgent challenges, such as water resilience.
Okay, sorry, I missed the question in the chat. But in terms of change in evaluation approach, for instance, most important here, we in terms of climate resilience, we need to go beyond the traditional theory of change to because here things are not linear. We need to consider the systemic approach, because the area of climate change include different aspects, not only infrastructure, let's say capacity development, behavior change. We need to go beyond, because there are a lot of interaction between people and the environment. So we need to move from a traditional theory of change to the one we had more systematic aspect of the thing.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joseph. As we wind down, we now have just about 5 minutes to complete. I would like to ask Alba could you elaborate on the gaps in the country's institutional capacity and the performance of service providers and how this should be tackled? Very briefly, and then we'll go into the closing.
Yeah, for example, very briefly, I will give an example of a project that we have in Egypt, integrated rural sanitation in Upper Egypt, Luxor, that we have combined infrastructure development with improvement in the performance of the sector utility. And this is something that we assessed with this project. We assess every year the performance of the water utility in base of KPIs that have been established with this utility and with the holding company. And I think this is a very effective way, and we are having very successful results. And it's a way of improving the performance of the water utilities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. So just to conclude, I think I'll invite Joseph, like looking forward, how do we, maybe in very brief, what are the priorities in terms of how we could use evaluative evidence to strengthen the outcomes in the water sector based on the issues that you have been discussing during the last 25 minutes or so?
I think we need to consider that all climate action should better consider evaluation knowledge. Just because development is complex, we may want to do something and think that we'll get the expected result, but the reality is more complex. So my advice is let's be more evidence-based, because we can avoid doing the same mistake by learning from what works, what doesn't work, and why.
Okay, thank you so much. And I see there's a follow-up question in the chat from Sabine. In line with this previous question, what collaborations would be necessary to evaluate water resilient interventions? What collaborations would be useful to evaluate water resilient interventions?
Collaboration among development partner, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I think mainly the first thing we need to share evidence. You know, each development partner is doing a lot of evaluation and gathering a lot of evidence. Sharing evidence is critical. So, for instance, for this kind of event, we can organize, let's say, a discussion around a specific subject using evidence from different partners. So sharing evidence is one option. When we have some intervention, co-financing by different partners, having a joint evaluation is also critical. So we can each of us learn from experience for other partners. So doing a joint evaluation among partners is also important.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I think we'll stop there. Those are very, very critical. And I would like to give Albert the last word from a sectoral perspective. Just maybe one remark in terms of how we can really use the evidence, as Joseph has said, being very intentional. One last sentence, and then we are going to close the meeting.
Thank you so much, Christine. So today reminded us that adaptation to climate change begins with securing water for people, for food, for cities, and for ecosystems. Evidence helps us understand what works and how to scale it, while local knowledge roots our solution in real context. As we move forward, let us continue to learn together, invest wisely, and act boldly so that communities across Africa can thrive in a changing climate. Thank you so much for your thoughtful contributions and engagement.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our speakers and thank you to the hosts. And we wish you really a wonderful participation in the COP30 sessions, and we invite you to check out the other E4CA events that are going to be happening the next 2 weeks, because you can access them all online. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Just to mention that tomorrow we'll have one on climate change and green growth.